So everyone is promising us an interest rate today, 4% high yield on your savings, 5% here, 3% there, 0% if it's just sitting in your checking account. So what should you be looking for, and what should you be watching out for and avoiding? We're going to talk about yield in a risky world, as well as that beautiful Treasury inflation-linked savings bond was paying almost 10% last year for 6 months, then almost 7%, just reset at 5.3%. All that and more in today's yield video conference, because hey, we should get some interest for our money, but we don't want to lose money in the process. Again, share this with your friends, youtube.com/Natalie Pace. And if you can't afford to save, if your budget is just eating you alive and you are basically maybe even putting food on credit cards, next week we're going to talk about unaffordable housing. So be sure to tune in there and check, subscribe at youtube.com/Natalie Pace. Encourage your friends to as well. There are solutions. They're not found in the mainstream media. And, we've been doing this for 22 years through two very severe recessions. We know how to do this. So let's get on board with the tricks so that you can save that money and safely earn a decent yield on it. Today's topic. We'll get started in just a moment. All right, so let's start with the great news. So last year, I was screaming from the rooftops that everyone could get that Treasury inflation-linked bond that was offered by the US Treasury. It was paying almost 10% for 6 months. When it reset, it was almost 7% for 6 months. Then it was 4.3, and it just reset again on November 1st at 5.3%. Again, there are limitations on this. You can invest if you're outside the US. It's $10,000 per person per year. And also, there are other limitations. They want you to hold it for a great deal of time. You have to hold it for a year. If you cash it out less than 5 years, you're going to lose 3 months of interest. So you want to read the fine print on it. You can gift it to other people. So there are all kinds of ways that you could take advantage of this. Now, I tried to look and see if I could find something in Canada that was similar. And what I came upon is that Canada was, at least according to Reuters, that Canada was, pulling back on their inflation-linked hedge tools. So you may or may not be able to find this in Canada. I was having difficulty finding something similar there. So again, here's that Treasury inflation-linked bond. As you can see, it's currently at 5.3%. This is one of the best return on investments certainly it was one of the best in 2022, and it's not bad for 2023. Now, it's a combination of a fixed rate of interest, and also the inflation rate. So that's why, even though inflation has been going down, that this actually went up from the last reset. So it will remain here for 6 months. And again, $10,000 per person per year, and you could buy them for other family members as well. Now, as I indicated in my opening of this video conference, you have to be really careful because, yes, everyone is saying you can get some interest now, including your fiduciary financial advisor. Now, I've been doing a lot of second opinions, and I've been finding a lot of things that were misrepresented. So sometimes, and I strongly encourage you, I outlined this in one of my more recent blogs, which I do recommend that you check out. Again, if you go to nataliepace.com/blog, then you're going to access a lot of these. So this one was the one that says Bonds, Banks, the Treacherous Landscape of Keeping Our Money Safe. So I do recommend that you read that. Again, I did cite a few anonymous examples of some pretty egregious things. So one thing was a person that thought they were invested conservatively had only 13% of their portfolio safe. 87% was invested at risk in stocks. stocks, funds, mutual funds, all that sort of thing, they can go down 50% or more in recessions. And that is why we always want to keep a percent equal to our age safe and overweight safe if we see economic storms on the horizon. And we definitely see a lot of uncertainty on the horizon. So we are definitely overweighting 20% safe in our sample pie charts. Now, what's the benefit of that? As you get closer to retirement, you can't afford to lose half of your wealth. So this person was actually retired and she was invested like a 13-year-old. Another person, they had wanted a conservative allocation, and his fiduciary financial advisor had put him into bonds that were losing more. He was saying, "Oh, you're earning 5 to 7% yield, right?" And if you look at the number, yeah, but if you subtract the losses of the principal that he had lost because those were toxic bonds that are illiquid and nobody else wants or is going to want to buy them from him because of either credit risk or duration risk. So again, it was highly misrepresented. Oh, you avoided all the losses in stocks. Well, the losses in stocks were less than bonds last year. And over the 3 or 5 or even 1 year period, they were well above where bonds were. So lots of misrepresentation going on. Everybody's offering you an interest rate these days. So again, let's give you a few hard, fast principles. I'm going to say this is that we spend one full day on what's safe at our investor educational retreats. So if you are over the age of 40, invest in the life math that we all should have received in high school. This is a 30-minute video conference. I'm going to give you as much as I can in these 30 minutes, but I can't give you a full days of learning. So you want to come to our New Year, New You retreat, January 13th through the 15th. Email info@nataliepace.com. There's a banner ad and flyer at nataliepace.com as well, where you can learn about pricing and information. It's no travel, no lodging expenses, and pretty affordable, considering you could save thousands annually with smarter choices. And also you could protect your wealth. And start building wealth for the future safely. All right, so what are the tenets of earning a 5% or around their interest rate? One thing I would say is this: keep the credit worthiness high and keep the term short. And by short, I would say 1, 2, or 3 years. Now, what we're seeing these days is that a 1 or a 2 year or even a 6-month treasury bill is paying more than the long-term one. So if we look at our treasury bill rates, and I'm going to take you to that page real quickly. And this is US treasury bills. You can do this for Canada as well. So here we go. So here we are. And if you look at today's November 9th, so the 6-month is paying 5.5 almost. And anything 6 months or under is paying 5.5. And as you can see here, the 30-year is 4.8. The 20-year is 5. So again, you're getting paid more to take on less risk. You're getting paid less to take on more risk. So, people say, oh, well, I'll get paid back, right? Well, I had a 70-year-old who had a bond that wasn't going to pay him back until 2074, right? So again, the interesting thing about what's happening today is that we have a debt world with a lot of corporations that really took on too much debt and are sitting at the lowest rung of investment grade. A credit downgrade means that nobody's going to want your bond, because when that corporation has to borrow again, they borrow at a higher interest rate and probably a shorter term. So again, keep the terms short and the credit worthiness high, and we will explain more of that if that's what you'd like to do at our investor educational retreat on January 13th through the 15th online. Another thing that we want to think about are areas and industries that are really in distress right now, because those are the ones that are paying the highest risk and the highest dividend. So, a lot of people are like, oh, well, it all washes out because as the price goes down, the dividend goes up or the yield goes up. And while that can be the case, there is still a lot of risk associated with that, because you don't get warning whenever the credit is downgraded or the particular company cuts its dividend. There's no warning on that. So I'm going to take you over to the most recent blog because WeWork just declared bankruptcy on November 6th. Now, this entire industry, commercial real estate, is still suffering from half-empty office buildings. Many of the companies are either at the lowest rung of investment grade or junk bond status. And again, they may have to suspend their dividends. We're seeing some companies that have suspended dividends. There's no warning on that. And I do recommend that you check that out. So again, what do I mean about keep the creditworthiness high? Well, let's take a quick look at countries, right? So when we talk about the US just got a downgrade from Fitch. Our S&P global downgrade was in 2011, but the most recent one was this summer from Fitch to AA+. So we're there with Canada, France, and the UK is France and the UK AA, but at the minus. So it's important for us to recognize that, right? There is still a little bit of risk. And that's one of the reasons why in our value funds, we're actually looking at other countries. For instance, Australia has a AAA rating. And if you look at their value funds where, their banks are higher rated than the US as well, they are paying double the yield. So again, you're getting more creditworthiness and a higher rate of return. And that's what I mean about this kind of treacherous environment on that yield. We saw, I just saw an advertisement from American Express saying, hey, I'll give you a high yield savings account, and the yield was 4%. So I could get a treasury bill from the US, a 1-year treasury bill that's going to be almost 5.5%. So it's a much higher yield and shorter term, which limits the risk, and it's an AA plus, right? So again, these are things that we really want to be aware of. We want to be aware of reading the fine print. Is our cash FDIC insured or CDIC insured or government insured? In the levels, you want to make sure of that. So again, here's the country sovereign ratings. Here are some selected banks. So Toronto, Westpac in Australia, Bank of Montreal. And then as you can see, a lot of the US banks are, BBB is the lowest rung of investment grade. So, and one other thing is that we did see, First Republic was A- rated. And at the time, it basically had to be bailed out. So, I would just be, and we are, and we've issued many blogs to this, we're underweighting US financials at this time. And we, have had that warning out for years in our retreats, and the blog came out before the banks started failing in the US. And that's probably not over, by the way. Again, if you're observing FDIC insured levels, you should be okay. I would be careful if I had uninsured deposits, and I would want to get those safe. And there are ways to do it. Combination of maybe having FDIC insured accounts, some FDIC insured certificates of deposits, maybe some treasury bills, maybe that treasury inflation linked thing. You also could look at, corporations like Google are starting to borrow, and they're pretty high rated. So again, keep the term short, the creditworthiness high, and don't reach for yield, although you can get a decent yield by keeping the term short and the creditworthiness high. You just have to be careful that it's not in an industry where it's heavily, heavily indebted. So you better learn how to do a stock report card as well, or know what industries are heavily indebted, and maybe slow growth as well. So again, normally, we have a 10% approximately in stocks, and even in a normal world, bonds would be earning more. We just had too long of a period of 0% interest rates. Over the 10-year period, as you can see, bonds really took a hit. So they were losing money over the 10-year period. We've been warning about them since 2011 at least. And of course, last year, they lost more money than stocks did. So again, we are overweighting 20% safe. And the benefit of that again, is that you're not going to lose that money, but you have to make sure that you're not just having blind faith that you have been overweighted safe and that you're in a conservative allocation, even if that's what you've asked for from a fiduciary financial advisor. Again, you always want to fix the roof while the sun is still shining. If you wait for the headlines that the economy is, in a recession or a weakening, it's too late. That's, the stocks have already lost. So we've seen that every recession in the 21st century, that, the whales come in, they sell, sell, sell. And by the time we get the announcement that we're in a recession, most people have lost half of their wealth. So the easy way to prevent that from happening is to make sure that you keep a percent equal to your age safe and overweight safe. And now, if you were 50 and you did that and you had 70% safe and 30% at risk, if you lose half in the at-risk side, it goes down by 15%. But again, don't reach for yield. Make sure you keep the term short and the creditworthiness high on that safe side, and observe the fine print and FDIC insured levels. And also, and I mentioned this in my most recent blog on WeWork, understand that insurance companies are not federally insured. You're just betting on the insurance company, and insurance companies don't do well in recessions. And also, they're subject to the same long-term bonds that caused the bank failures. So they are one of the things that the Federal Reserve is concerned about. So again, one last thing, and this is something we go over a lot at the retreat. There are ways of literally saving thousands of dollars annually. So if you flip your thinking, instead of I'm going to get paid, I'm going to stop making everybody else rich and all that extra money. There are things like solar panels, if you live in a sunny state, that could be giving you a 15% yield. If you're powering your own electric vehicle, it could go up to 20%. So there are lots of things that we could be considering that most people are not, that a financial advisor cannot offer you, right? Like, so the financial advisor can offer you the products that the brokerage is going to give you. They can't. And by the way, they will tell you that your cash can be FDIC insured, but there's a loophole to that. So again, wisdom is the cure. I've had many video conferences on this. And also I did write about this in the ABCs of Money. I'm going to probably be updating that this year because the last one was 2021 and clearly things have changed a lot since then. So again, one last thing. So if you want to learn and implement it, then you can join us at this January 13th through the 15th retreat. Again, the first day is on nest egg strategies. We also have the second day is on what's hot and how to avoid the bailout. So you'll learn how to do the stock report card and check up on your insurance company if you have an annuity or an insurance product. So here's more information about that investor educational retreat, Financial Freedom, New Year, New You. And again, it's online. You can get pricing and information. Right now, we're in the early bird pricing period, now through November 30th. It also, if you want to get a second opinion, and let's face it, if we were worried about our physical health, then we might get a second opinion from somebody who is enthusiastically recommended by Nobel Prize winning economist and MacArthur Genius Award winning economist and many other people. You might want to get a second opinion from me. Again, it's unbiased because I do not sell financial products. I developed Easy as a Pie Chart Nest Egg Strategies and the Thrive Budget back almost 20 years ago now. And because we really needed these kind of strategies, we needed to protect ourselves from these wild, very, very deep recessions that we were having in the 21st century. And also from a world that doesn't add up. So that's what we're going to be talking about next Thursday in my video conference, unaffordable housing and what you can do to start keeping more of your money, stop making everybody else rich, and live a richer life in a world that if you are just playing by the rules that you're taught, you're probably having to put food on credit cards. So we have to start thinking creatively outside the box in order to get ahead and start saving that money so we can earn that safe 5% yield. All right, thank you for joining me today. Remember, you can watch this back at youtube.com/Natalie Pace. You can also listen to it as a podcast. Just join me on Substack at Natalie Pace. Thanks again. Today is November 9th, 2023, and I look forward to seeing you next Thursday for our, what are you supposed to do in a world that doesn't add up and affordable housing? There are solutions.